Welcome back to Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now, many times, my panelists here describe Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution 2010 as mere flowers in that document, that it does not work. But are we beginning to see it work? Just this past week, we did see Dr. Ben Chumo, former Kenya Power boss, being rejected by the Parliamentary Committee on National Planning for that position had been nominated for as a SRC chair. Let's just take a look at the details first. Patrick Amimo covered this for us.
On Monday, the National Assembly's Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning vetted Dr. Ben Chumo, who had been nominated by President Uhuru Kenyatta as chairman of Salaries and Remuneration Commission. The vetting process happened a few days after Chumo and other top managers at Kenya Power had been arrested and charged with graft and economic crimes. And on Wednesday morning, the committee tabled its report, which was debated and adopted in the afternoon session. In the report, the committee noted that Chumo exhibited good professional and academic qualifications and experience to serve as SRC chairperson. The report says Chumo also had impressive knowledge on issues touching on human resource management, which would have been invaluable in discharging the functions of the position he had been nominated for by the president. However, the committee noted that Dr. Chumo did not meet the requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution and the Leadership and Integrity Act after he was charged last week in the Anti-Corruption Court. Members concluded that since Section 62 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act requires that a public officer who has been charged with corruption or economic crimes should be suspended, the nominee, if approved, will find it difficult to take up the position.
Based on the above issues, Mr. Speaker, the committee is of the view that the nominee is unsuitable to be appointed as a chairperson of SRC.
Kenyans are asking, where was the DCI, where was the EACC when the president was presenting the name of this nominee?
We must protect the integrity of this House. Speaker, we have been called MPs, and the matter we are dealing with is a serious matter. It's not the chair of Ombudsman. It's not even the chair of Kenya National Human Rights Commission. It's the chair of SRC.
And someone who is under investigation, not even charged in court, should not ordinarily be approved for appointment to a state office.
According to the committee, the Kenya Revenue Authority and the Higher Education Loans Board cleared Dr. Chumo. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission stated that the candidate was charged in court on 16 July 2018 for various counts. The committee says although Dr. Chumo submitted a certificate of good conduct dated May 15, 2018, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations did not provide adequate information on the nominee upon request.
The allegations that are there put a mark, a question, and for a position that you're asking, you should be beyond reproach.
To reject the appointment so that all of us and all those public officers can know that Parliament is very serious in the fight against corruption.
As Dr. Chumo was shown the exit door, the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee gave a thumbs up to the nomination of former Meru County Woman Representative Florence Kajuju as the chairperson of the Commission on Administrative Justice, the Ombudsman Office. MPs also endorsed the nomination of Washington Opio Sitati and former Registrar of Political Parties Lucy Ndongo as members. The House approved the appointment. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
All right, so the National Assembly coming out very strongly to back that decision by the Departmental Committee on National Planning. Are we going to see more of this, Dismas, from where you sit? Or is this just a drop in the ocean and one case?
Well, your question is loaded and it goes to three answers. Number one, the people who work around the president are letting him down.
Yeah.
How they would actually give him the name of Dr. Ben Chumo to be nominated means that there was no due diligence done. Any Kenyan, even a class 1 kid, knows that Dr. Chumo has got issues around his reputation. So the fact that, in fact, they gave him the name, and also the president went ahead to nominate him, leaves a lot of questions. And as the president has restructured his communication team, there's also another team now he needs to restructure. Because I know for a fact the president would have access to this information through the DCI, the National Intelligence, and every other organ. So that the names you present to the president...
I mean, a background check should be...
It's supposed to be a bare minimum. Right? Yeah, and in as much as people are saying that Dr. Chuma is the one with an egg on his face, it's actually President Kenyatta with an egg on his face because he's going to have to do another nomination. Number two, the rejection of Chuma confirms to us that the members of the National Assembly, when they're thinking about Kenya, they can actually deliver on value. Because in my view, this is the first time you're having a public servant being a beneficiary of Chapter 6. And that's something that they should keep on. Because when the Constitution made a provision from Chapter 6 for them to come up with the Leadership and Integrity Act, they came up with an act which lowered the bar on the moral values that anybody now can serve into public office. And moving forward, we should demand that the National Assembly engages with Chapter 6 and the Leadership and Integrity Act with very solid manner. And for Kenyans, if you're appointed for a public office and you know you've got a stain on your conduct, there's a stain on your reputation, don't even bother. It was very embarrassing to see Dr. Chuma seated at the National Assembly having a cup of tea, knowing a week prior he was at the Milimani Commercial Courts facing charges on corruption. Does he have moral standards? And this is not specific to Chuma, but do Kenyans have moral standards that when you've been dragged to the courts, when people have cast aspersions on your integrity, when national institutions say that you are probably not fit to hold a public office, why should you go all the way to the National Assembly? And lastly, there were people who were saying that the committee made a mistake by listening to Chuma.
Right.
And you know that's erroneous reading of the Constitution. The committee must have the opportunity to listen to you. Because if they don't interview you, if they don't vet you, then after a number of days, automatically you stand qualified.
All right. Let's widen this conversation, Mark. A lot of those lawmakers were castigating Ben Chuma and his nomination. But do a lot of them have, can they throw stones when it comes to this issue of integrity and leadership?
Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Of course not. Of course, there are many parliamentarians with very many stains on their moral and ethical characters, but that does not stop them from doing the right thing. And we must be very clear on that. If we're going to fight against corruption, we are not going to say that the policeman who's participated in corruption in the past should not be able to arrest a suspect who has committed corruption. This is very critical. Number two, and to situate this thing broadly, I keep asking myself, and perhaps a Kenyan out there has the answer. Number one, what is the definition of poverty in this country? Because apparently now if you're worth 200 million, you're poor. That's one. And two, if you have 200 million shillings worth of assets, what do you want in being a chair of such an organization? It's a question that I'm trying to ponder. It's the same question I ask when you're running for Senate or MP and you spend more money than 50 years of being that position will pay. And we know you're not doing it for the public good. What are you doing it for? The last question that I'd like to ask the public, even as I ask myself, doesn't anyone have the dignity to step down when they are seen to have a stain on their character? I remember Strauss-Kahn, who was erroneously almost indicted for having molested a lady in the US of A. And he stepped down from his position he was holding, and he stepped away from running for president of France. That is the level of character Strauss-Kahn had. In Kenya, these things are unheard of. But even funnier is how our logic in dealing with a chicken thief fails us in dealing with people who are guilty of stealing many thousands and millions of chickens. This is what I mean. If we were to form a chama, the five of us, we would not elect any of us who we thought has even the ability to overdrink and spend our money. Yet in this country, we can elect people to take care of our resources who we suspect with great evidence, prima facie evidence, that they are thieves. And yet we are comfortable with them holding the purse strings of a nation. How is our logic at the village level failed on the national stage? How?
Good questions, pertinence. Hezbollah.
I think my answer to Mark is that the quest to acquire wealth does not obey the law of marginal diminishing utility. So even if you have a lot of money, you will still look for money. But then I think having said that, it's a good thing that Chuma was appointed by the president. It's even a good thing that there was an oversight in terms of the background check, because then we've seen Parliament exercise, the requirements of Chapter 6. And this is setting a precedence that we can refer to in future appointments. Why am I saying this? That if Chuma had excused himself on the basis of that corruption case, then we wouldn't have had a case where Parliament actually stopped someone based on leadership and integrity issues. And I think going forward, we'll have to refer to this, because in terms of qualification, you look at Chumo's qualifications, stellar qualifications. I mean, he has experience, he has the papers, and I think he was without that corruption allegation, he was actually coming with something that many Kenyans would consider a substantive qualification to run that office. So the fact that we've had somebody who has everything other than integrity stopped by Parliament means that the generation that is looking forward to serve in government positions will now be thinking of their track record and what they are setting, because if they don't, then Parliament will exercise its duty. And then another thing is that even MPs now have been called to that attention, that if you're going to exercise Chapter 6, then it's just a matter of time. This Chapter 6 will also be exercised on MPs. And I think if we just consistently follow up with what Parliament has done, and credit to the handshake, because you realize that MPs were speaking from a common interest for all Kenyans. Going forward, I'm looking at a situation where this will also affect the members of Parliament, because Chapter 6 is invoked in Parliament. Any other person who will be vetted to contest a parliamentary position, the agencies that will be vetting should be watching, and they should be borrowing a leaf, so that in future we have people who are vetting other people who were themselves vetted. But again, it's also important that President Uhuru Kenyatta is not embarrassed by the people who are charged with the responsibility of doing the background check, because that should not be wished away. Okay. He should look at that, the people who give him information on the on the appointments that he's making before they're subjected to Parliament.
All right. Kipchumba, have the final say on this. Do you think this makes us serious about integrity issues
Ben, I
of
think
the country?
At times we misconstrue issues. One, if you have had a serious discussion with those who know how the happenings in Parliament take place, they will tell you without blinking that what befell Chuma is nothing, it's just the obvious. It's the same as what befell Monica Juma. And those in the know says that people or members of Parliament were against Chuma for the simple reason that while at his position at Kenya Power, he did not extend freebies to members of Parliament. It is in public domain. So let us not pretend that we are acting under the cavalier that there is the exercise of Chapter 6. It is a lie. And yes, now that it has happened defaultly, we will celebrate the members of Parliament. They did a good job. But also there is another thing in the public discourse and for the legal scholars to continue the debate, that where does the issue of innocence end and where does the public policy of public good come in? Now that is for legal scholars to continue the debate, because here we have a locus standi in the ICC case where we elected 2 individuals who had been charged in the international court, and they assumed office, everything happened. And here we have somebody who has been charged in a court, a competent court of jurisdiction in Kenya, and the Parliament exercised its duty and did whatever it did. But again, looking at the flip side is this: had Chuma been approved by Parliament, this is how the thing will have gone legally. The president will have appointed him and sworn him in, and after that, he will have stood suspended until the end of his case. Right. That is if it had gone the other way. But now, looking at now the law as it is, interpreting the law as a Puritan, and interpreting Article 50, Sub-Article 2, yes, there is innocency. But the issue and the letter and the spirit of the Constitution dictates that when you have been charged in a court of law, you step down. Okay. It leaves one answer. The question that raises the integrity issue. an integrity question surpasses the issue of innocence.
All right.
You might be innocent,
Okay.
but what happens in the eye of the public?
Perception. All right.
What the former
All right.
justice
All
called
right.
it.
Ben, allow me just to make a point.
Really have to leave it there.
Yeah, but just one point that Karori may be misconstrued as misleading people. For an elective office, for you to be barred from running office, you must have exhausted all mechanisms, all appeal mechanisms.
No. The criminal standard is equal for all Kenyans.
He says the criminal standard is equal for all.
Criminal standard does not subject people to elective
for elective and appointive, there are two different standards.
No.
All right, let's carry forward this, put us down this for the next show. Let me read some of your comments on the show this morning. Dennis Sarot says, Kenyans are not serious about integrity. To hold a public office without ethics is like a rat race. One here from Rigao says, thus, we as Kenyans need to think beyond the constitution and see how we will tame the MPs and make our Senate accountable, lest we perish. Shadrach Mule talks about NASA and says, the political parties in coalition, NASA, is undergoing political metamorphosis to align themselves with the real political reality, where supporting the handshake is the key. Isaiah Peterson Kip says, we all know from the start that the people claiming to be the opposition are only united in addressing the media. Sandra says, opposition is dead as a dodo. In fact, I believe real opposition in Kenya expired with the exit of Shikuku, Matiba, etc. And when figures like Martha Karua slowed down, imagine if those personalities were the apex today and how they'd have tackled the sugar and rhino issues. And finally, Callistus Murunga says, getting you in Doha, Qatar, thanks. The opposition in Kenya is not dead, it's rejuvenating. Weta is the one who now wants to make it look like it's dead by whipping and whining each time he sees a camera. Thank you for your tweets and texts. Keep that conversation on going on hashtag KTN Sunday Edition on Twitter. Thanks to my panel this morning, Kipchumba Karori, lawyer and political strategist, political analysts and communication experts, Hesbon Owila and Mark Michachi, and political risk analyst here on the show, Dismas Moko. Let's do this again next Sunday. And to you, thanks for watching. Let's do this again, same time on Sunday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. here on Sunday Edition, as we dissect the biggest political stories in the Republic. I'm Ben Kitili. Don't go too far. Up next is Weekend at 1 with our lovely Zinzi Kidiko. Bye for now.